the reason why I find goal setting to be such a pressing issue is because um, a lot of the time when we start a course, we have very high expectations. So it's like going to the gym. You decide that you want to go to the gym, that you want to get in shape, that you're going to put your best effort, and then you go and you buy a bunch of gear, you buy new shoes, you set days and times when you're going to want to be exercising. And the reason that it doesn't work is that for a lot of people is because of the way they set their goals. Um, 1 second. Yes. Uh, so, what's the problem with goal setting? And I think this is a problem that both teachers and students have. So this isn't only something that happens with the students, this is also something that happens with teachers. And the problem is that um, a lot of the time, the goals that we set are just too general. Um, or sometimes they are goals that are too subjective, or they're goals that are going to take too long to be achieved. If the goal set for your learning English, or if the goal you've set with your learner is something that's too general, that's too subjective, or that is going to take too long to be fulfilled, it's very, very likely that this person will get a nagging feeling that they're not learning very quickly. I've made a quick list here with four very typical ones that students bring to teachers when they're looking for a private teacher or when they're looking for a school. The first one is, I want to learn English for my job. The second one, I want to be very good at speaking. The third one, I need to learn English because it's important. I think 90% of the people who reach out to me saying that they want classes have said that to me. Or I want to learn English because I want to travel. Okay. So being very good at something is subjective. I, for example, think my French is very limited, but every time I talk to a French person, I always hear a compliment. They always say, "Oh, tu te débrouilles bien." But I don't think I can get by. I think it's horrible, but they think it's good. Um, and the worst thing about wanting to be very good at something is that that means you're constantly comparing yourself. So even even if you have that as a goal, it will be difficult for you to make sure that you're meeting that goal. And we're going to see that with the learning process. A lot of the time, you get situations when you don't feel like you're good at all. So that's not a very good goal. Another goal that's too general is, oh, English for my job. Okay, but what does it mean to learn English for your job? What do you want to do? Do you want to participate in meetings? Do you want to be able to exchange emails? Do you have partners or colleagues in other countries? What are their nationalities? It's not just a matter of taking a business English book and learning the content from the book. It actually needs to be more specific if you want to stay motivated. So, the problem with setting a goal that's too general is the fact that your motivation is going to go down when that goal is not met in the short term, and as a consequence you are going to put less effort. It's just like what we do when we're going to the gym. and we want to lose 5 pounds in a month, it doesn't happen. We simply stop going. So, what I always advise both students and learners to do instead of setting goals that are really general is thinking not only of this about these very general goals, but milestones as well, something you can achieve in the short term. So try and consider, okay, I want to be very good at English. I think it's important, but what do you want to do in the short term? So I put some examples here. Let's say this student wants to be very good at speaking. So let's work on this one here. Okay, this person wants to focus on speaking. Um, well, I think the first thing to do if you want to be good at speaking is to take specific things that you need to cover. So, how can you become very good at speaking? Okay, I want to improve my pronunciation of ed endings. I know that, if I speak Brazilian Portuguese as a second language, it's very likely that I'm including sounds that don't exist at the end of the words. So I want to improve the way I pronounce ed endings. I want to learn sounds of English that don't exist in my first language. That's going to be something that's going to improve your speaking skills because you're going to be learning exactly what you need to communicate well. So these are short-term goals that you can achieve without needing to take years and years and years of practice. And it give when a student masters something in the short term, it's motivational. You can see your improvement. You can see that you're getting there. If you want to build a castle, you need a brick to start. So another one here is I want to learn English because it's important. Well, ask yourself, you think it's important? Very good. Why is it important for you to learn English? And I think a lot of the time, if you're a teacher or if you have a teacher, a good teacher will sit down with you and coach you through the process of finding out why that's important for you. How can you make use of learning another language in when it comes to the practicality of it? Um, so, for example, I had a student who said that to me. Oh, I want to learn English because it's important. And then I said to her, okay, why is it important for you? And we talked for like 20 minutes until she realized, it would be very good if at this moment of my life I could know a bit of English to communicate at a job interview. Very good. This is something that matters to her. This is something that she needs for her career. And this is the reason why it's important for her at the moment. It's okay if what's important for you changes with time. The most important thing is that when you're studying, you focus on what's important. Because if you just think something is important, there can be many reasons. And I believe a good teacher will sit down with the student before starting the course and help them figure out how to make these very general goals more specific, more achievable in the long run. A very common one that I have, maybe not so much at the moment because of the crisis we're having, but I have quite a few students who say, I want to travel. I want to learn English to travel. Okay, so you want to learn English to travel. Well, so probably you need to learn how to communicate with the cabin crew on a flight. What's the first thing you need to do? Well, let's learn how to tell the flight attendant that I would like chicken in a polite way, or how to ask for help, or simple things. I want to learn how to pronounce the names of the drinks that we find on a flight correctly. Um, that's something achievable. You're not just thinking of the whole challenge of doing the whole trip, but specific skills that you need for different moments. Like, for example, checking in at a hotel. This is something achievable. This is something practical. Another one is if you want to learn English for my job. Lots of students say that. And oftentimes, students who say that end up confessing that they actually don't like English, but they know they have to do it for their career. So, as a teacher, you need to help your student figure out what they want to do at work, because there can be so many different things that a student can do with English at work. Are you going to negotiate contracts? Are you going to present products? Are you going to have meetings? Do you have clients or partners from overseas? Where exactly are these partners and clients from? That's a very important question, because if you have a student who's learning English for their job, or if you're a student and you're learning English for your job, the nationality of who you're going to converse with matters a lot. You would want to learn, for example, how to better understand Indians if you have someone um, that you're going to be negotiating with and the person is Indian. So you're not even going to focus on understanding Americans and British people, because that's what your company is doing business with. So the main question for you to ask yourself if you're learning English for your job is, okay, you are going to learn English for your job, but what do you want to do at work right now that you can't? So one thing I thought that's a very good short-term goal is, well, you know what? I need to improve my vocabulary to talk about my role in my company. So I think that I don't have the necessary vocabulary to explain to a foreigner what I do in my company. I want to improve that. So then you focus on that specific thing now. This is going to motivate you a lot. I'm getting a comment here from Vito that I found very interesting. He's saying that setting short term goals is highly effective because people often get motivated whenever they achieve something. If the goal is not clear, they feel like they will never achieve that goal. I'm with you 100%. Nobody starts off running a 10K marathon. We start off going for walks in the park, and as we build up, we get to that point. So always consider that when you're studying. Um, I'm going to add a link to the description of this video where I'm going to show you guys a few of the goals that my students first brought to me, and how I helped them to tweak that goal so that they could be turned into milestones for the short term. Um, and how do we set milestones? So I like to think milestones have to involve three things. They need to be practical. So if you say, oh, I want to learn present perfect, that's not a practical milestone. Or I want to improve um, my conjugation. I want to, this is especially common with my Italian and French students. They love learning conjugations. Oh, when are we going to have a class about verbs? That's not practical. If you're trying to improve language just for the sake of language, it's going to be meaningless, and you're not going to stay motivated, and your effort is going to go down. So remember, goals need to be practical. The second thing is it needs to be something that can be done in a short amount of time. So, understanding British accents, that's not something you're going to master very quickly, because we have a ton of accents in this country. So it's going to take you a while. And sometimes even native speakers struggle to understand certain British variants of English. So that's not going to be so simple. Um, or, for example, I want to be able to do a presentation in English. Depending on your level, you might be able to do it quickly. Depending on your level, you might not be able to do it so quickly. So, setting milestones has a lot to do with what you can and can't do. One of the things you can do if you are studying alone, so if you don't have a teacher, is reach out to the CEFR. And the CEFR, I'm going to add also to the description of the video. I think it's gonna look a bit small here, but once you guys go to my blog, you can download it. Um, it's a self assessment grid. And in this self assessment, you will be able to read what is typical for students at each level to be able to do independently. I believe this can be a really good um, thing that you can use to set achievable goals for yourself. Another way to set achievable goals if you're a student is to get a teacher to assess your level and then show you a few of the things um, that you would be able to work on at the level where you are. You can also do that using the book that you're using in class. For example, you can look at the topics that will be covered, what's expected of you, and then set goals based on that. I'll show you guys a few samples from my blog. I'll add a post as soon as I finish this. Um, yeah, so top tip. Best way to set goals, especially with adults, is to work with 3-month periods. I like that because a lot of adult students work at companies, so many of them are used to quarters. So I think it works very well. One of the things I do with my students is right at the beginning of that 3-month period, I like to record the student performing some of the tasks that we have set as topics. So I personally like to set the goals as topics within our Google Classroom system. Some of the topics are added by the students, so it's things the students would like to cover. Some of the topics are added by me, so it's things that I think that student particularly needs to learn. When you record yourself at the beginning of this period, you can then wait 3 months, go back, look at the recording, and actually see how much you've improved. I think a lot of the time when we improve, we forget the level where we were at the beginning. So a lot of the time, we sort of ignore the fact that we've come a long way because we even forget the mistakes we made. So recording yourself is a really good way to stay motivated, and it's a really good way for you to stop feeling that you're not learning.